Okay, so tonight I'm going to share with you probably the first study I studied when I was fresh out of my addiction to crack. I was very desperate. I'd been down to South Coast Recovery Centre and they didn't keep me there because the money that I was expecting from a tax directive never came through, and so they weren't like I am. They kicked me out because I couldn't make the payment. They put me at the desk. They told me I must use the phone. I used to know how to score, so now I can phone and try and raise the money to pay for my stay at the rehab. And I hit a blank and I couldn't think. I tried my wife and I tried one or two others. She just was not interested. That was the time that she had broken all ties. Her act of tough love was to break all ties with me. And so there was just no one to help me out. And then I pleaded with my brother to take me. He was all the way in Cape Town, and he kept imagining that all his valuables would start walking out the door, and was very reticent to help me. But in the end he agreed, and the owner, whose name I know but I won't mention his name, of South Coast Recovery Centre, put me on a bus. I think he paid for the bus, and he sent me all the way to Cape Town. Yeah. So that is what other rehabs do. You don't pay, you don't stay. So I think I've got a lot more mercy in my heart than that, even though I've been treated that way in terms of my recovery, but I don't treat others that way. But anyway, I was now at my brother's place in Camps Bay and really desperate to come right. And the first study that I looked at, the very first study I looked at on how to overcome my crack addiction was the one I'm holding in front of me, this very page, which I came across it today. And it was more related to the addiction to crack. However, I think all of you can listen and you can tell us if you can identify in any case with it. Anyway, these are the points. First of all, you need to put your confidence in God. If you don't put your faith in God, you're not going to overcome your addiction. So first step is faith in God. You need to trust in, like they say in some of the sport groups, power greater than yourself. Well, our high power is the Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. And you need to trust in God. Amen. Then my next point was complete abstinence. You need to be committed. If you really want to be successful in your recovery, you need to be committed to being completely abstinent from not only your drug of choice, but even any other mind-altering substance like alcohol, marijuana, tranquilizers, whatever. You need to be committed to being completely abstinent. Amen. If you're still battling with that, let's call it stronghold in your mind that I can still take a glass of wine or something like that, then you're not going to have a successful recovery journey. It's complete abstinence. I battled with it, to be honest with you. That one stumped me because I enjoyed my beer or glass of wine. It wasn't my drug of choice, but I battled to put that one to rest in my thinking. Then the next point is friends and places can be triggers. Mm-hmm. Friends and places can be triggers. You cannot go back to the same places. You cannot go back to those places, and that's for those friends. And I think you're going to rescue them. You're going to try and help them. Don't even think about it in the beginning, because the pull downward is much greater than the pull upward. So you shouldn't even be connecting telephonically or via WhatsApp with your old connections that used with you. And places. You can, I used to make the big mistake sometimes, and I did have a few slips after this occasion that I described, and it was because I did unwise things like drive past the very areas that I used to use, the very places where I used to score, and just out of interest, I just wanted to see if the same dealers were standing on the corner. I wanted to see if, you know, if those guys are still around, and that was very bad. It was very bad for my thought life. It was a real trigger. Okay, so friends and places can be triggers. Then the next one is use always leads to more use. You cannot think that, you know, I will control the substance. Any mind-altering substance cannot be controlled. You cannot tell me I can, you know, I only use a little. I will only use a little. You will never be able to only use a little. That is why you have the principle of in Celebrate Recovery that says, I am not God, and I'm powerless to control my tendency to do the wrong thing. Little you cannot do. You cannot control it. Using will always lead to more use. In fact, the recommendation here is make an outline plan of 7 days, 30 days, 3 months, and you try and just keep a track of your behavior throughout those 7 or 2 weeks or 1 month or 3 months, and you try and keep a bit of a journal and have a bit of a plan, and you can, and by doing that you can focus your energy on progress. But the most important point out of what I'm saying is use will always lead to more use. You will never be gratified by a little. Just like a fire will not be satisfied with one piece of wood. You understand? The ground will never be satisfied with one bucket of water. It will drink it in. So it is with any mind-altering substance, whether you are dealing with a hardcore one like crack, or what you deem to be a low-core one, like, I don't know what's low-core for me. Everything other than crack was soft-core. But that was because I was chronically addicted. Okay, so you cannot think that a little, using a little, or going only to buy, let's say, 100 rands worth, or 200 rands worth, or 50 rands worth, and think you're going to stop there. You ain't going to stop there, because the moment you take it, it's going to give you a craving for more. You're not, all it's going to do is it's going to incite, as it were, the saliva in your mouth or the saliva in your heart for more. You understand? If I love a rump steak and you give me just one taste of it, or biltong, and you give me just one little bite, I feel like eating the whole lot. If you give me a bag of biltong, nicely fresh, nice soft biltong, which is the way I like it, then I'm telling you, I will not stop at one. Yeah. I will have to work my way through the bag. Okay, so that's the same thing. Then we make excuses. We make excuses for our using. So the excuse making, stop making excuses. Find a better way to live. Find a better way to enjoy yourself. But stop making excuses. It's because of stress. It's because of the wife. It's because of the trauma I've been through. It's because of this. You're using those reasons as a scapegoat. They are not, there are no reasons that you can use to justify your using. They are merely excuses. So stop making excuses as to why you need to de-stress yourself with this stuff. Don't make excuses, okay? Or whatever, whoever you're going to blame, whichever person, whichever circumstance, whichever job, whichever trauma you've been through, stop using those things as an excuse, because that's all they are. They are excuses.
Amen.
Learn your pattern of weakness. Learn your pattern of weakness. When am I weakest? What are the moments that I'm weak? There are many alcoholics that seem to do well during the week, but come Friday and they've just got to go out to the pub and drink. So find out what is your pattern of weakness. What is the time that you would be in the past most inclined to go and use? Because that same trigger will get you again once you leave Healing Choices. It will get you again. So try and analyze and even write down which are those moments when you're most prone to going to get a hit towards going to score or go and get a bit of doobie or whatever it is that you use. Which are the times that you're most inclined? So learn the pattern of your weakness and keep yourself busy, especially at that time. Keep yourself busy. When you know this was the time, whether it was in the afternoons, whether it was the end weekends, ensure that you've got something that will occupy your attention at that time. Play with the kids, or going to the gym, or going for a run, or whatever it is, but keep yourself busy. And then, as we all know, I mean, I can mention friends, but because I'm recording this, I don't want to mention names, but I have friends that I got quite close to that today are dead because of using of substance. And the reason that they are dead, some have committed suicide, is that the crash after using. So be careful if you have had a slip, or when you do have a slip, if you have a slip, be very careful of the crash and the fear and anxiety that comes upon you when just after you've had a binge. Be very careful, because that can become very agonizing. I had somebody that threw herself off the building because she couldn't. The agony was just too intense, and she was in Healing Choices. And try and get help from other addicts that are doing well in their recovery. Phone them, try and stay connected with people who are strong in their recovery. Whoever, they don't have to be perfect, but they need to be people that have got a track record of staying clean. So get help from other addicts. There are recovery groups even on Facebook that I found that if you talk about your struggle, many people will answer you and try and give you encouragement to stay strong and that type of thing. So try and stay connected. If you don't have a support group, or you're far from a support group like this, then join support groups on Facebook. The important thing is you need other addicts. Non-addicts will not understand. If you belong to a church that has life groups or cell groups, if you are sitting in a cell group or a life group like this, and you say, oh, I've had a terrible week, I'm really struggling with cravings, they won't know what on earth you're talking about. So what you do need is you need to be with fellow addicts. Keep the thought, because I want to get through this. And then, so be careful of, once you've had a slip, be careful of the agony that you're going to go through, and think about that. Don't forget that after you went for a binge, or after you relapsed, after you had some clean time, don't forget how agonized you feel in your soul at that time after using. Don't forget that. Don't forget about how bad you felt, and how disappointed you felt, and how disappointed your family were in you. Don't forget that, because that remembrance can help to keep you clean. So don't forget that there's going to be a moment of agony. And as I said, some of them committed suicide because they couldn't bear it, because the agony and the disappointment and the shame was so great. Then, this is now number 8, if you're taking notes, the money factor. For a crack addict, and for any other addict, I'm certain, I just was very selective. I didn't use any other drug. I only used crack. I didn't, if I used something else, it was more to bring me down. So for me, having money in my pocket or having access to cash was a very, very big trigger. That's why I don't like it when people who are in recovery are carrying disposable cash in their pockets. Because for me, cash represented using. I remember one stage I was clean maybe for several months, and I sold my coffee agency, and the friend that bought my coffee agency was very happy with the transaction. I played it safe. I made sure all the money went into my wife's account, and so that I didn't have to deal with the finance, keeping myself safe. But then this person, he had 700 Rand in his hand, and he gave it to me. And I said, "What's this for?" He says, "No, I just want to bless you. I'm just very grateful as to how you conducted this business transaction." And so he gave me this gift. I stuck the gift in my pocket. I went to my study, and I sat down to do whatever I normally do behind a desk. And the money inside changed temperature. It became warmer and warmer and warmer till I could bear it no longer. And I went straight to my motor car, climbed in the car. In those days, you could only buy stuff from Rosettenville or Hillbrow, and then later on it was Windsor. But these were the earlier days. And so I went straight to Hillbrow, straight to my dealer, and I scored, and I spent the $700. So, and I broke my 3 months clean time. So the money factor. Money is a danger if you are an addict. I don't think this is only about crack. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Would you agree with me? It's not just about crack. It's any addiction, any substance. Money equals using. So that's the money factor. I have 4 more to mention. Don't forget the medical risks that you take. It definitely kills. People who are using substance will often have very risky sex and not think of the consequences. There are all kinds of medical risks. You might not be very healthy at the moment. I hope you are. But sometimes we want to blame our lack of health to other things, or our lack of emotional health to other things. But actually it is related to your use of your substance. And so think of the medical risks that you're taking by keep using. Many have died, as we know, from overdoses, from heart attacks, but some just die from a condition that was related, as in a friend of mine that I had in the rehab. She left the rehab, and she left because she relapsed 3 times on heroin, and I told her, "You're going to have to go. I can't, for the sake of the others, I can't keep you here." And she understood. Lovely person. I actually really liked this person. She was very special. But a month later, she died. She had a blood clot, and the blood and they gave her stuff to thin her blood out, and then she fell and hurt herself, and she couldn't stop bleeding, and she died from bleeding. So so conditions, health conditions, are related. So think about that. Think about other risks, dangerous situations. I took a walk through Johannesburg City late into the night, and if it wasn't for security guards stopping and picking me up and said, you know, umlungu or whatever they call me, you know, this is not safe for you, you know, this, and they gave me a lift. I was living at that stage in Rosettenville because my wife wouldn't have me at home, so I was too scared of her wrath by going home to Linden, and I was in Melville, but I began walking from Melville all the way to Rosettenville. Can you believe that? And luckily I got 2 lifts from security guards. And then I think of the days that I would walk alone, the only white person in Hillbrow, walking alone in the middle of the night, going to score. And I was not a young person, you know, my addiction came later on in life. I was in my late 40s already. So you take terrible risks. You know, people can knife you. I've been threatened with a knife in a drug dealer's house. So the thing is that you take all kinds of other risks. So think about that. Learn to hate your drug of choice. Learn to hate it. Despise it. Learn to hate it. Whatever it's not been good to you. It's not done you any good. You can't turn around after years of using of substance or crystal or whatever it's and say, wow, this helped me achieve this goal and helped me achieve that goal. You've got nothing to show for it, but only loss and hurting people, which is my next point. But there's nothing good that came out of your using. So learn to hate it. Think about the pain that you've caused children, or you caused wives or husbands or whoever. Think of the pain that you have caused. You've caused a lot of pain. One of the things that helped me, there were a few things that helped me get clean, but the one weekend that I had a relapse, my wife decided to tell my 6-year-old son that I was out taking drugs all weekend. I didn't come back. He wanted to know where his daddy was, and so she decided this time to tell him. He bawled the whole weekend, non-stop. He cried the whole weekend, non-stop. And when I came back, I felt so terrible about that. And I made a promise to him that Daddy won't do it again. But think of the people you've hurt. Okay, reawaken your conscience. That's a study I want to give you guys about reawaken your conscience. Practice your conscience. Try and develop a strong conscience. A conscience about the things you've done wrong, and a conscience about those that you've hurt, about having a wife having to cry herself to sleep every night because she doesn't know where you are, or a mother who doesn't know where you are. Think about that. Think about, try and have some conscience for them. And then take a look at your life. This is the last point. your life falls apart. Take a look at your life. Try and look at how much has fallen apart in your life. How much has fallen apart? A lot of things have fallen apart, even from a little slip or a little relapse. Think of how much has actually fallen apart by your using. Think about where you are right now. Maybe some of you, and I was once in that place. I had nothing. My family didn't want me back. I had no business. I had a coffee shop franchise. We had opened something like, I forget the number, I can't remember, it was 14 coffee shops or 18 coffee shops in a space of 2 years. I lost all that. I lost my family. I lost the love of my children. Think how much has fallen apart, and it's left you homeless. I was homeless. My family didn't want me back. Think how much has fallen apart. Think about how much you have spent, you know. So think about how much your life has fallen apart. So I might have mentioned more than 12 points, but as I said, this was my very first study on how to deal. I was desperate to get over this crack addiction, and I realized that the addiction was far greater, far stronger than me. So what was I to do? And so I worked through these points. Okay, thanks a lot. Well.